everyone. Thank you for joining us today in this webinar about leveraging technology and AI in the digital coaching landscape. We have Ram with us, who is Coacharya co-founder and also an MCC coach. We, in fact, have two master coaches in the panel today. We are also joined by Cindy, who is here. And while people are joining in, I'm going to take you all through some of the programs and two special announcements for people today. So I was just saying that we have the Mega ACTC program coming up, as some of you may know, the Coacharya Mega Systemic Team Coaching Program, which will prepare you for the ACTC credential. Now, this particular discount that I'm talking about is a 25% discount if you join in groups of 4. This is exclusively for our alumni. So this is one special announcement that I had for today. The other is that post this webinar, we have a Q&A session with Ram and Cindy, who are two of the 6 Mega ACTC trainers. You can ask all your questions, and they will be here to answer all your questions about the Mega ACTC program. So please stay on. We would love to answer your questions about the program. Other than that, some of you may know, but coaches need someone to coach them too. And our coaching supervision program is happening soon. It will be led by Ram. And this will be your pathway to becoming a coach supervisor. And Sylvester will be pasting on the links on the chat box about the programs. I will also be pasting a link where you can check out all our programs that are happening soon. Over to you, Ram and Cindy, for the rest of the webinar. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And welcome to all our coaches and guests and whoever's joining us. And so today's webinar is going to be a partnering in sharing wisdom, insights, and experiences of whatever you are learning or learned already, and some pieces that we are going to share on AI, technology, and coaching. Your insights and your sharing will be vital to how we move forward, as together we can collaborate and create a list of resources and help each other how to support each other in learning more, upskilling, getting ready, or introducing and expanding AI into our coaching practices, if that is something you are doing. If that is something you're already doing, also we'd love to hear that from you about that. Ram and I would continue the webinar in a dialogue format, meaning we will chat with you and you continue on the chat box. And I have a few slides to share. Before I do that, I'll invite Ram to say a few words and to say hello to you. Ram?
Yeah, hi. Thanks a lot, guys. I think Cindy is planning to take you through some of the stuff that ICF has worked on recently. I'll leave those details to Cindy to cover. I mean, essentially, what I would like to share at that point in time as we go along is the kind of work that I have done using AI over the last about 2.5 years, whenever ChatGPT first appeared on the screen as a public format. And then from there onwards to the multiple other options of Microsoft Copilot, Gemini from Google, Claude AI, and most recently, DeepSeek. So in fact, at any point in time on my screen, I usually have all these 5 open plus a few others, something like Napkin and so on and so forth, and play around with all of them in terms of what's probably good for what. So that as a coach, as a learner myself in many ways, what is it that AI can really contribute in terms of one's own growth in the coaching journey? So I'll stop here. I'll let Cindy continue as and when we have some time in between. And if you have questions, I'll answer them.
So we'd love to hear from you also as the webinar goes on. How, in what ways you are using AI tools, ChatGPT, etc., etc. You heard Ram share. As we go on, please feel free to do that. I'm going to share screen. Oh, that's well done. So here we are. I was thinking about this. It's a year ago that we opened up the first webinar on AI and coaching. And Ram, if you remember at that time, we were asked from some people in the background not to even do the webinar. You remember? Saying that, yeah, we shouldn't advocate AI and coaching. We should advocate the human experience only. And here we are a year later with more and more coaches diving into and using AI in different ways. So here's this intersection or this integration or this partnering, coaching language, this partnering now of AI and humans. What do you think, Ram?
Yeah, sure. I mean, are you referring back into what we discussed 1 year ago, or?
Yeah, well, you can draw your own links if you want.
Yeah, for me, it goes much earlier than that, Cindy. Almost about 10 years ago now. I was at a program at Harvard Medical School. It was organized by them in coaching. And there was this guy, I forget his surname, David. David was at that time chief coach of Google. And he came on and spoke about, is coaching any more relevant in the digital age? And he himself is a coach. He's no more now. And there were probably about 50, 60 people, all pretty highly reputed. And they all were mad at him. They said, how dare you say this, and so on. And a year later, I had occasion to be with him on the same stage in another enterprise talk, where he came dressed as a spacesuit, and then talked about the same thing in a slightly different way. There was no AI at that point in time. And people were saying the same thing as they are saying now, even now. Many coaches, they don't want to believe that there is going to be an AI. Or if we ignore AI, it'll go away. It won't.
It won't.
If we are going to ignore it at our own peril, that's about all what I would like to say at this time.
Yeah, and it's getting smarter, right? Like people make these comments, AI is going to take over and AI is going to do that. Actually, it's a lot of smart human beings that are involved in creating AI. And the smarter the prompts and the creation of it, of course, we're going to see features that we're attracted to and looks humanistic. Throughout this webinar, we'll also touch upon the human being touches and how invaluable that are in combination with AI learning and technology. One of the keys of this webinar is the ICF AI coaching standards that was introduced a few months ago. And why were they introduced? Or what was the audience? Who was it introduced for? Now on the screen, you will notice that it was used, or it was the creation of it was for a broad audience. It was for coaches who wanted to use technology responsibly. Broad statement, responsibly. It talks to the ethics of coaching and the way we partner. So the client is quite fully engaged again in the way the partnering happens with technology. And I'll stop there. I'll say a few more points about that a bit later. But technology responsibly already alludes to the ethics of coaching. Who else? It was designed for our coaching clients, for organizations buying coaching, the buyers of coaching. coach supervisors, software developers, meaning providers of coaching platforms, etc., for coach education and training organizations. In short, it was the standards made sure that AI coaching is not only powerful, but ethically transparent. It's ethical, transparent, and trusted by everyone involved. And we'll touch upon that in a bit, but this trust and safety of it seems to be a huge concern for many coaches, for clients, and for the process they're using. Where can data leak? What's the risk involved in using machine learning or different tools that are powered by AI? I'll go on to the next slide, and please, coaches, if you want to share your thoughts on this, do so on the chat box. Why does this AI standards matter? Of course, there's privacy, trust, bias, how to manage different aspects that begin to show up, because now you're getting a lot of responses that are prompted or that may show up in a way that may not always sit well with people. So how do you manage all these biases or red flags that will begin to show up? People have real concerns, and the one thing that coaches know how to do quite well is establishing agreements, and with self, with others, with the various stakeholders. I'll reference a point on our WhatsApp group, the Being Masterful Coaches WhatsApp group. Last week, I raised the question, is AI part of our stakeholders or one of our stakeholders in coaching? And coaches were quite engaged in that conversation, some saying yes. And how is AI a stakeholder? And some saying no, AI is still managed by others. There were some really interesting thoughts on AI and how we create agreements. ICF standards were a guide for coaches and developers in building high-quality ethical systems. The standards are quite comprehensive, and I couldn't copy it, or I didn't want to copy it into any slides. But Germany is going to put the link up, and if you don't have the standards already, you can have a look at it on that link. It's also on the ICF website. Coaches, there are some brilliant, very resourceful, interesting articles, research papers on the ICF website on thought leadership. It would really be valuable if you just took out some time and just engaged more with whatever resources is available there, and copy whatever you need for yourself in how you are engaging with clients. Ram, do you want to say anything about?
No, if you want to finish with the entire ICF, complete that, Cindy, and then we can talk about how it can be used by each individual out here.
So if you are looking at that framework, the ICF standard framework, you will see that the first 8 standards, even if you're not looking at it, this is broadly, it's framed broadly. The first 8 standard fits in with the ICF core competency structure. And the standards 9 to 13 extend from the core framework with additional details relevant for software applications and AI in the use of coaching. So I'll say it like this. There are some standards that are familiar with all coaches because they fit in, they are aligned to, or they are part of the ICF structure, the core competencies. And there are some that are quite unique, but it's quite relevant to the use of AI in coaching. And some of you may already be using it. Like, for example, a different set of measurements now, or different assessment guidelines falls under the standards 9 to 13. Also the use of risk management and the use of trust and safety, and how you can build your AI using different components to create more a safe, secure environment. So this is an interesting question. Sorry, go ahead, Ram.
There are a couple of questions out here. One is from Sway. I don't know whether I'm pronouncing his name correctly. If a client has a complaint about AI aspect of a coach's service, who do they have legal resource to or recourse to? I presume it's to the coach and not to AI. So, but I don't know whether that aspect is being covered or it'll eventually be covered. Do you have anything? And then there is another question about Michelle, from Michelle. We're actually, Michelle, you are talking about what part of coaching. Eventually, what I would like to talk about a little bit is about in every single aspect of what coaching is, in terms of using it for development of content, developing conversations, assessments, which many people are using it for now, self-assessment, and as a training exercise, as a training companion, stakeholder. That's what Cindy is really talking about. And those are amazingly powerful areas where it can significantly enhance one's own skill sets and competencies. Yeah, over to you, Cindy.
Absolutely. I can't see the chat. I'll engage with it in a bit.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what we're talking about now, right? This ecosystem now is grown tremendously of all this interconnectedness of systems and human beings, the management of different pieces. And now it looks like a system that requires us to become more, to upskill ourselves in how we're using digital. Are we using any kind of digital, like the tools, techniques, systems? So it requires some kind of new thinking, some kind of upskilling. The ecosystem has changed. If we're using AI tools, techniques, the ecosystem has changed. And we now got to think about all different aspects that are showing up. So here's a lot of questions that we could do some joint thinking around. I'm going to stop the screen share because we can pick this up a piece at a time, or should we start with one? So one of the current integrations of AI in coaching practices, one of the questions that sits with us is, or sits with all of us, how are you currently incorporating AI tools into your coaching systems? To the participant that spoke, or Ram read out your comments, I think that you picked up quite a few ways in which we are incorporating AI tools into coaching sessions. And you spoke about assessments, etc. Coaches on the call, what else or how else are you incorporating AI tools into your coaching sessions?
Cindy, there's another question. I'll just address that and then talk a little bit more about some of these things, and people can follow in terms of whoever is. Yeah, do you want to continue to share, or you want to stop sharing?
Yeah, with the okay, we can go back. Let's stop.
Yeah, Pekka has asked a question: how does AI learn to coach human beings in a way that you humans must have coached or taught AI? Yeah, pretty much the same. I don't know how many of you are familiar with some idea about large language models and complex language models and how they interact with neurons and things like that. It's a lot more than, it is something like metacognition, that you think about thinking. In the same way, the way that AI is structured is actually to, in a way, simulate how your brain works in terms of neurons. They've got neuron nodes and so on and so forth, and synapses and stuff like that. And so essentially what it does is to mimic the way that humans think. May not be exactly the same way, but pretty close to it. And one can say, yeah, it doesn't differentiate in terms of emotions and so on and so forth. You would be surprised in about a year's time there would be a lot more out there, like there has been in the last 2 years, a tremendous amount of enhancement in terms of the capabilities. Now, in terms of the large-scale systems, the basics of it were always available for almost about 20 years now in terms of Google search and so on. That also was AI. It was in terms of going and searching into multiple sources of information and bringing them together. So what the large scale or whatever they are called, LLM modules and so on and so forth, what they are doing is not only just do the search function, they acquire the material together, but they are able to put it together in a much more simplified manner in terms of the way that you want to approach it. If I were to tell the AI, so present it to me in an 8th standard English with a little bit of humor and with a few metaphors, it'll do that for you. And if I say that I want it in a PhD language to be able to be published in Harvard Business Review, example, which only the, let's say, to my mind, only the scholars who are fully judgmental, they read, that can also be done along with AI. So it much depends upon the prompting that you want to use in terms of, therefore, the prompt engineering itself has become an extraordinarily remunerative source. In fact, they are getting paid about $300,000 and so on, something like that. So it can do many, many, many things today. So when you say, is it the way that humans think? Yes, it believes it does, but it's learning all the time. And so it might be maybe faster, and certainly faster, but it might be far more generative than you think you are capable of. What I want to leave you with this as a thought. I have been using AI for several things. Clarify one day, somebody has asked about system thinking and so on. I'll come to that later. Whether it's a living system, non-living system, and all those are all very scholarly words. Now, I have been using AI for about close to 2.5 years since it appeared on the scene. And first, I started developing conversations, ACC level, PCC level, MCC levels, and so on. And I've also sent it across to Cindy, some of those conversations that I developed. And if you didn't know, and if it's just a transcript, I'm an MCC assessor, okay? And I do it routinely. I'm supposed to be a rather strict assessor. I would pass it for MCC standard. It's as good as that. All that I had to do was a little bit of prompting there and saying, hey, look, it's on the MCC, this is the MCC bars, and this is how the conversation should be. It should be talking about the meaningfulness, the values, systems, aspirations, etc. of agreements, and then it should go into deep exploration, and the exploration should include some kind of energetic, emotional, sensory kind of stuff, some visualization, some metaphors, and so on and so forth, with action points and so on and so forth. It'll create everything for you. That's at one level, it's frightening. Yeah, sure, somebody can copy it, but can it? In the sense that if somebody uses it as script and they are trying to act it out, you have to be a Meryl Streep to be able to do it as good as job as the AI has produced. Otherwise, you'll be stuck there halfway through, don't know what you're talking about. So there are safeguards which are brought together. That is the simplest level. Today, it is advanced to a level. It wasn't good enough earlier. And Cindy pointed out to me a few other tools that are available today where you can put in an MCC level recording or a transcript, and it'll be able to give you an assessment, which is pretty close to what people like us, Cindy and I, have been literally. I mean, I have done, as an ICF assessor, probably about close to about 1,000 assessments. And between the two of us, maybe we have done far more than that. And it's pretty good. It's pretty close to what we are talking about. At a third level, can it be used to develop course outlines, course content? Of course, yes. It can develop. I've just created a book, and I have published today. I put it on Amazon Kindle. It's about 180 pages. I got this idea in my head that I wanted to talk about how spiritual intelligence can align with artificial intelligence. And the book is called AI 2, the number 2, to Om, AUM, which signifies spiritual intelligence in the Vedic philosophy. And I was amazed at the way the book developed. I never expected it to be anywhere that. I just said to the AI, say, look, just give me some chapter headlines, and then what would be in each chapter, about 10 headings or whatever. And then can you give me about 200, 300 words for each of them? And the kind of thing that prompting that I gave it was that I would like to read it in a seamless way as if somebody real is experiencing it. So it created an avatar, as it were, Maya, who's an AI researcher, and she goes through this experience, and based on various competencies, how it is developed. And if you have an interest, you can take a look at it. I just want to experiment with it and see, do people find it useful? The point is, you can create an entire book, very meaningful book. And I'm looking at it not just because I created it, and I sent it to several other people who have looked at it and said, look, it doesn't look as if AI could have created it, but AI did create it. So it can be an extraordinarily powerful training mechanism. And that is what we are as a coach training institute really be interested in. Can we use it to help you to learn faster, better, in a more masterful fashion? Just go back to some of the questions. We need to clarify with clients when we use the word systemic thinking. It's not well distinguished. Yeah, sure. First, the coaches have to be very clear about what they mean by systemic thinking. Forget about other people. So in a sense, systemic thinking is not about living systems and so on and so forth, but it's about arising from organizational development principles, Kurt Lewin's philosophy, that it is individuals working with teams for a larger organization. So in order for an individual to relate to an organization, it is better to work towards teams. So I don't really want to complicate this too much into what system thinking is. Peter Senge has written volumes about it. His Fifth Discipline is a classic on system thinking. Otto Scharmer's Theory U is a classic on system thinking. As Sway's other question, she has put in several questions. How close are recordings generated by meeting the pass-fail requirement? That's exactly what I'm talking about. The ones will surely pass, forget about failing. Okay, and if you prompt it well enough, let's be very clear about that. If you're good enough, if you understand what it is, and Cindy and I myself have several years of experience, so if you could prompt it specifically saying this is what the BARS requirements are, PCC markers requirements are, it'll produce a sufficiently good one to do the, forget about ethics and cheating and all that kind of stuff. I'm just talking about the capability of that. So I mean, let's not, the thing is, it's very easy to get the whole thing mixed up. Oh, is it ethical? Is it moral? It's whatever else it is. It's up to us. It's just like a surgeon's knife can kill as well, and it can cure. So are we going to use it for the right purposes? Do we have our moral compasses right? And let's worry about that first. So the first thing I would say is, can you use AI, which is what I started using it for? Can I use it to self-coach myself? So I could just put in a few thoughts there and say, hey, these are some of the things, and can you help me to set a few guidelines as in terms of how I should sort of reflect on it, analyze about it, and do something so that I'm my better self. And it gave me some extraordinarily good advice. That's all I can say. Yeah, over to you, Cindy.
Yeah, the one thing I will say, Ram, I mean, you have used it and prompted it in extraordinary ways, meaning, to kind of even challenge yourself or let's see what merges. You've done that repeatedly. Let's just challenge ourselves or challenge myself and see what emerges with different prompts. Coaches are also clear. Ram's talking about capabilities, what AI is capable of. And we have all seen the more he's used it, honestly, sometimes you just want to sit back and think, really? Did that come out? But Ram is right. The prompts that you give it, obviously then would equate to the outcomes. And the book is talking about, I haven't read it yet, but I'm really quite intrigued to go through it and see what Ram talks about, because he's once produced a program that we haven't launched as yet. But the way he's done it was more to test how AI could react to different prompts. And we've done repeated testing around that, amongst all of us. It's wonderful.
And just to add to that, Cindy,
Wonderful.
I have no knowledge about machine language.
Yeah.
I'm not a software developer. Way back sometime, I experimented with coding and stuff like that. I don't do any of that. I'm just using normal English and not being a native English speaker. So I guess my level of English fluency is of the 8th standard kid. So at that level, I interact with AI, and therefore, and what I'm able to produce is that. So yeah, don't get worried. Because you said, who gets paid if human and AI coaches?
Yeah.
As of today, the human gets paid because the AI still is considered to be an agent who is supporting you, and you are the prompter, and you hold the thing. The AI doesn't hold the IP. That's pretty good. But at some point in time, if you were to give AI the authority, probably then you have to share the fees with AI. Or if let's say Cindy and I start an agency called Kocharia AI or whatever it is, and we say, okay, we will help you and do that, whatever, surely we will demand a fee from you. That's going to be different. But as of now, if you go to Claude AI, and also very quickly, I'll put this way today, if you are really looking for the most reasoned and logical output, and which is what I use in the book. I used the free AI, which limited me to asking only a certain amount of things in a day. So it took me about a month to produce that book. It took me 3 months to edit that book. Claude was amazing, truly amazing. The Chat GPT doesn't come anywhere near it. And Gemini and Copilot are far behind. Each of you can have your own opinions. Maybe you like it better, whatever. But DeepSeek is really the joker in the pack. And the little that I have tried out with DeepSeek, and within that, there is something called deep thinking. And you can press that button, and it'll take about 30 seconds more. And during that period, then it'll sum up everything that you have said and ask you, is this correct? And then you want me to go ahead. And then you go ahead, and it'll give you something which is remarkable, absolutely remarkable. So it is just that you learn by doing. You don't learn by being afraid of it and not doing. That's all I'll leave it with you for.
Nisha, we'll type in what Ram uses. I'll ask Yamini to type it in.
No, I'll
But
put it in.
oh, you put it in. Okay. And sometimes, just as on a lighter note, if Ram is giving everyone some kind of request or instructions, we'll go, this comes from Ram and Claude. So, because, there's a lot coming up. But what I want to say is that the experimenting and the prompting, I would say just go ahead and have some fun with it. You'll be surprised at what comes out.
Yeah.
So what are you using? I'd love to know what the rest of you are using. The thing is, right now we're talking about capabilities and how we are expanding ourselves in the way we are using AI. In a minute, we'll talk about the ethics around it. Right now, just share freely, as you heard Ram share. What are you using? Susanna, I'd love to hear how you do that. Lord, okay. But you also used, you've got Claude, right? What else have you used, Ram? I know you've used more than that.
Yeah,
What's the famous one?
ChatGPT I started with, and I used at that time what available was Gemini, Google, Microsoft, Bing, and Copilot, and then came Claude AI. Now comes DeepSeek. There's something called Perplexity, which is much more specific to certain users. There is Napkin, where if you put in there, it'll give you some very, very decent infographics, extremely informative. So you can convert an entire text into very, very simple graphics. And of course, ChatGPT is now combined with DALL-E or DALL-E or whatever it is to give you some graphics as well. And actually, most what I admire is if you really understand the technology behind it, the amount of skill that is required from the AI to be able to produce an image is far, far greater than that of a text. It's not just about collecting information and making it generative and so on. Here, to be able to convert your thinking into something graphic is extraordinarily difficult. And they are getting better and better, and soon there'll be videos and everything coming out as well.
So I was quite delighted to see that we're not the only ones. I mean, many people are going out of the ways of just trying and testing. And on the ICF Thought Leadership, there is a space there where I forgot the name of who it was, but somebody mentioned it was one of the thought leaders. You know, the credentialing exams, how it bothers everyone. So they did a prompt on the credentialing exams, and they asked, I think it was ChatGPT. The prompt was quite comprehensive. You can read it; it's there on the website. That whole prompt. They put the framing of it and asked it for 10 questions, and told AI and mark me on the 10 and give me the correct answers after for anything that I got wrong. It was amazing. And they repeated that and they got more answers, more questions, more answers. That's great, right? Like, you want help preparing for the credentialing exams? All you have to do is some good prompts. So I was quite curious. I copied the whole prompt and I put it in ChatGPT. Really, it did gives you some. I changed the prompts a little bit to get more expanded questions or deeper questions. I sent it to a few MCCs to test, and they came back and told me, no, it's very difficult. Where do you get all this from? So really, you can get all these kind of expanded support or test yourself, or Ram says self-coaching, and see what comes out of it. But just give it a try.
Yeah, it looks like many of them are trying out various tools where it's mentioned about.
Yeah, it's lovely to see. I've never heard of napkin. What is that?
Actually, perplexity is an Indian.
Oh,
So yeah, and they are into some very specific areas, complex areas. And let's talk about very simple things, Cindy. I mean, even let's say one is about the coaching, and we know what many things that it can do on coaching. So one of the things that anyone who is a coach who wants to set up their own business, supposing you want to set a website, today it may not be exactly feasible, but I think in another 6 months, you would find if you just mention, I am such and such, this is my coach, this is my audience, these are my special skills, etc. These are my USPs, and please create me a website with 6 navigation bars, and this is what I want to do. It'll give you the entire website. You don't have to go to anybody. You just can upload it. It's as that simple. And if you want to then go into, and which we have done, and I have done on many occasions, is to go on and say, hey, I'm having this particular problem in increasing my B2C market or B2B market or whatever it is. Can you give me some ways as how do I go about working on this? So it'll give me a complete marketing strategy. It'll give me then step by step if I want to go deeper into it. It can give me what kind of analytics do I need? And within those analytics, how do I use them? It'll give me the prices of various tools that can be used and which are the free tools to be used. So in fact, pretty often today, whenever we engage a vendor, a technology vendor, I first go to Claude AI and ask Claude AI to give me a request for purchase, an RFP in terms of technical specifications and so on. And when I start using it with them, and many of those vendors get pretty disturbed because they haven't thought about it themselves. So you know more about the technology than the vendors very often do, who pretend to know everything about what they are talking about. So that is the power that AI can give you. You don't have to look at anybody else as an expert, and you can do that. Of course, many people are doing it already with Google in terms of doctors and going to ask them very uncomfortable questions, and doctors are very upset with it. But the fact is that it can give you the power to be able to stand on your own and be able to question other people as to what you're saying is right or wrong.
yeah, you expand your own thinking, right? Your own critical thinking. You're able to evaluate better. You got more options to think about. So, coaches, there's another question that I would love us to dive into. Democratizing coaching. So, there's this question. Do you believe AI can make coaching more accessible to a broader audience? If so, how? How do you think we can do that? Make coaching, not for just the elitist, but more accessible to a broader audience? Also, this question here, what are the potential risks do you see? Risk and rewards of AI-driven coaching solutions becoming widely available. Like very soon it is. I mean, we know in the background this has not come live as yet, but quite a large multinational are developing an AI platform for all their employees to use. So it very soon is going to become broad, widely used coaching solutions. What do you see potential risk, and how do you think we can reach a wider audience?
That's an interesting question from democratization. There's already talk in an organization where only executives, seniors. I actually say it will be a good thing, because if I mean, given the, again, I'm being a little funny here, but depending upon many organizations are so focused on the price that they pay, and you pay peanuts and you get only monkeys. So it depends on the kind of coach that you're going to get for human coaching. If those are the kind of people who are going to coach leaders in some organizations, and I know some where they go that way, and it'll be probably a lot better for the others, the mid-managers and juniors, to be coached by AI, where they will get probably much better value for not paying any money at all. So it all depends as how it is, how people use it. But having said that, but on the real, this thing, Cindy had one question up there about what are the areas do you think that AI is unlikely to be able to meet the requirements of what human coaching today would? That is,
yeah, that's a lovely question, right? Because it talks to us. What's our value versus this AI technology now?
I think that is what we should focus on.
Yes.
Fortunately, people don't like it when I say this, but in my supervision, I've come across 80% of coaches that I've worked with in supervision are using the cognitive approach. And secondly, many of them, when I probe deeper, they have baggage within them. They haven't cleansed themselves. And then when they try and coach other people, saying that I can help you get over these kind of baggage or limiting beliefs, then that's hypocritical. So whatever we say about artificial intelligence in terms of what the risks are, those risks are already available today, even in human coaches. The way to move forward, in my opinion, is not only just to go to the emotional intelligence part and talking about empathy and so on, where very often we ourselves do not have empathy, we ourselves do not listen deep enough, but to something much deeper, which is what we call the sensory awareness coaching in Cocharia, which we have been trying to popularize. And pretty much everyone, there may be many in this room who have experienced that with me. And I've been running programs for ICF chapters in various parts of the world. And people have come back and said it has helped them with issues that they have had for 10 years, maybe 20 years. And those are the kind of things where I think AI is got to go a long way forward to be able to do that. And then also with quite a lot of technological help in terms of prods and what is called skull caps and so on and so forth. I have experimented with many of them through my journey, and even those are not very easy to do. Sensory awareness coaching is simply you go to the root element of where the metadata comes from, which is your body, which feels it, rather than the emotions, which are first level of corruption at the midbrain, and the thoughts, which are the second level of corruption at the frontal cortex. So if you're able to elicit information about the metadata, which is sensory information, and it's going to be the answer, because that's a first responder. That's where the truth lies. And that, if you're able to practice and if you can become a good coach, whether you call it ontology, somatic, or whatever, combination of somatic ontology or God knows what, that is going to be a space where you're going to be safe from AI, at least for the time being, or for quite some years to come. So I leave it to you that those of you who are still fixated on cognitive and very scholarly analysis, sitting at the coach's chair, you're going to be replaced by AI for sure.
Yes, it is somatic coaching when he's talking about sensory coaching. It's a combination of much more than just somatic.
It's much more than somatic coaching, it's much more than psychological coaching. It's a lot deeper.
Yeah, Venkat, I like your comment. Nice. AI don't have any baggages like human coaches. I don't know, Venkat, with the introduction of sensories and feelings and things into the AI, who knows, huh? It'd be nice for AI to come and tell you what's the entire issue.
But I'm not quite sure about that, Cindy, because at the end of the day, the AI has been prompted and created by the human. So it will carry.
Exactly. So you'll never know, right? Yeah.
Yeah. But it'll have probably less baggage.
So coaches, what are your concerns? Are you worried to see how do we position coaches together with the use of AI tools? What are your concerns? The one thing for sure is that we now need to partner more. We need to co-create more if tools are used, meaning if we are using tools, we need to have that kind of partnering conversation with clients as to what tools we are using, what happens to recordings, who sees the results of the assessments and tools we are using. So we got to manage all those aspects around trust, safety, and agreements. There may be a lot more to manage. Our standardized coaching agreement may slightly change to include more.
Cindy, there's a question from Sway about AI has loads of bias, research papers appearing daily about the way. Look, Sway, you're right. I mean, but in every AI, any reputed AI, there's always a clause which says that the AI can give you fake information. And that's absolutely true. And therefore, if you do not know anything about a particular subject and you ask AI for advice, there is a very good chance that you're going to get quite a lot of material, which if you use without verifying, you're going to get into trouble. I mean, these are many, many cases. There have been this advocate who quoted a case which didn't exist. I come across every time I ask for links, about out of 10 links, or about 5 links are fake. And I go back and it'll say, oh, I'm so sorry, I apologize. And then I look for it. Therefore, the onus is on you as a user to be able to test it out. But having said that, there is a lot of improvement that's happening. And each day it is getting better. And therefore, it's like, caveat emptor, it's like caveat user. So you need to be careful about what you are getting out there from. Madhumita, in pretty much in many of the courses I run, especially when I'm there, I do a session on sensory awareness coaching, and I have done it several times in this forum. We can do it on demand. And to be very honest with you, sensory awareness coaching, I'm not looking at it as a price kind of offering. It is going to be incorporated in part of our credentialing program. But we do run a program from time to time called Create Your Future, which is based on sensory awareness and a lot of meditation. That we mainly run it to raise money for our foundation, which is for underprivileged kids. So if you keep watching the Kocharya news, or if you subscribe to it, you will get that information. Sesha, from a new to professional.
So Fika, that's a very interesting question. I mean, I'm going to wait and see, right? Will AI have an ego? I don't know. Let's wait and see.
It will have. Humans have ego, and therefore the AI will have its hubris as well. I'm very sure it will. But maybe sometimes some smart guy will come up with a filter to remove that ego. We don't know what it is. Yeah. And
Just as we are talking about the benefits of using AI, and actually we're not promoting the benefits, we're just telling our experience of using it, and as you are sharing yours. The thing is, we still, I think, need to use it enough to find out what the actual risks are. Because I mean, I can say watch out for the tools and assessments you're using with clients. You don't know who's going to see it, but I actually don't know all the other elements or the risk factors that makes it available for others to look at these results or to listen to your coach recordings. Because now you enter Zoom and your AI tool is also entering with you, and you wonder, really? I now take away all the AI companions from Zoom and just tell it to sit in the waiting room and drink some tea. Because coaches, if you're using Zoom, you know what I'm talking about, right? There's all these AI companions joining you. And you have no idea then how many people have access to what could be a confidential conversation. So now I'm quite mindful, even when recording during Zoom, like we're doing a live coaching session, I'm so mindful. I've got to ask repeatedly, will this conversation remain with us, or do we need to switch off the recording? And I make sure that the coach being coached or the client, even the people in the room, because sometimes if you record and it's on video, you can see everybody in the room. So I make sure I repeatedly will ask, are you okay that it's recorded, or do you want us to switch off the recording?
yeah, Cindy, there are a couple of questions. One is from Sage Sai, and there's one from Mark. I'll try and
Go ahead.
in a common one. I think both of them address the same thing. Sage is asking about, as a new coach, how do I jump start and better than AI? And Mark is asking about, what is it that you can do and how can you differentiate? And I said earlier, see, AI, at the end of the day, if it is going to be developed by people who are techies and not by highly spiritually intelligent and energy intelligent people, is going to be still cognitively driven. That's what I think it would be. Maybe it'll change. As long as it is that way, it will have layers and layers of refined cognitive intelligence, but it's not going to go beyond a point into what I call as a sensory awareness kind of coaching work, which is really, you're not just communicating with people, but you are communing with people. You are able to be in that energy space about that person. I think that's a way. In fact, this book that I wrote with the help of AI, that's what was the amazing thing about it. And that is what the AI immediately grasped. And this was not my doing. I was almost like in awe as this evolved in terms of the conversation between me and AI, in terms of how it started talking about energy space and how the ecosystem coming together and so on and so forth, how we can positively be an upward spiral, like in spiral dynamics, and not the kind of dystopian downward spiral that is happening today. So yeah, it's again, at the end of the day, it's about how we are going to use it. And nobody knows. Everything is so much, pretty much open. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree, Ram. There's just we can't say for sure. Today we may have an agreement that we designed to accommodate AI and assessments we're using. But it could change very quickly, right? And then we have to redo that agreement.
Yeah. I mean, see, some of the, yeah, I'm right. Suzanne has written about, I'm a regenerative strategist, whatever that might mean, e-waste and so on and so forth. But the fact is, if you go to the UNDP website or UN website, who's not being paid by anybody, they are telling you that it's not the petrochemicals, it's not those kind of sources which are going to be the ruin of the earth, but it is the methane gas that is being pushed out by the cows. And with more and more of the dairy and the meat industry and agricultural farming becoming animal farming and so on and so forth, that's a much greater danger that by 2050, they say, even if there is no petrochemical, There is no e-waste. There's no nothing. And all this kind of energy generation that you're talking about, the place will become unlivable because methane is far more dangerous than NOx, SOx, and COX, and so on. So I think there's a lot we don't know, or a lot that we don't focus on. So I think it's much more important to take a rather integrative aspect of it and see what happened. This is like, I remember way back when I was in my 20s, there was this Club of Rome, which basically said that in 20 years, we will run out of resources to survive on this earth. It's 50, 60 years since then, and Earth is as good as bad a shape as it was then. So I'm sure we will have the innovation, the creativity to be able to find those, but not for the reasons that we are talking about. The data centers are going to kill us. They are not, because DeepSeek, for example, has already found a way where you can use minimal amount of energy, unlike Sam Altman and Elon Musk, and be able to produce these as well. So I think we have to mind our cows first. And
absolutely. I think the concern is because it's becoming so prompted and easy to deliver then on human-like skills or human-like qualities are beginning to show up. Like, for example, AI was around for a long time. Your car reminds you need to take a break, or you need to, it's time for a rest. Your vacuum cleaners and whatever gives you reminders on what to do. We get these all the time. But I think now it's a bit different when it comes to coaching, because it's our profession. And of course, we take a lot of pride in how we coach our clients in the human engagement. And partnering with technology now, who's equally concerned about human engagement, requires some navigation.
Yeah. We need to take charge, at least to the extent we can, and rather than flailing around and saying, hey, this is going to cause a problem, that's going to cause a problem. Can we find a way to resolve it, or can we stand up and make a statement? Those things need to happen. But I guess, as you said, change is inevitable, and technology especially is changing very, very fast. The key issue is, can we find an anchor? And we believe that amidst all this changes, if we can at least be spiritually, energy intelligence-wise anchored within us, and we have a moral compass for ourselves, each one of us. And I think that's a good starting point. I'm not saying that's an answer, but that's a good starting point.
It also requires some upskilling, right, Ram? I mean, you've practiced enough with it. It requires some skilling, some kind of new skilling or upskilling. So, yeah, that's also a piece of advice, or maybe, some tips. If you want to use technology.
Letting go, Cindy. It's not so much upskill. It's again, I mean, like somebody asked, ego. It's letting go your ego and being able to accept whatever is happening around. And can I be my true self? If that is upskilling, yeah, sure, it's upskilling.
Yeah, you're right, because to get the prompt is actually it just requires a few minutes of thinking, right, on what you want and how to prompt it.
Yeah. Okay, we're almost on the end.
We're almost at the end of our time. And coaches, I haven't looked at those ICF coaching standards. They're actually quite interesting. And of course, all the best to you in how you're navigating using AI together with your own coaching practices. Ram, anything you want to say to close?
Well, again, I just want to repeat this, that to me, AI, the way that AI is moving forward, it's going to require a lot of spiritual intelligence on our part, or energy intelligence on our part, to be able to maximize the value, to optimize the values there. And as Madhumita was asking, yeah, do we run programs on that? Yes, we do. But those are not necessarily always the ones that people who are looking for ICF labels and credentials do. So these could be parallel, and yeah, we will also try and promote those as much as we can. Thanks.
The Masters in Coaching webinar next month, sorry. We are talking about emotional intelligence and the impact on various parts of humans. We're not talking about AI. It's humans, emotional intelligence, emotional regulation. So please join us on that. See you all next week. Thank you for joining, everyone.